Well, this was a surprise. Nintendo just announced Game Builder Garage, a brand new game-making game, I guess, a game-making toolset coming to Nintendo Switch for $29.99 on, what, June 11th, Joey? Is that right?
That is correct. June 11th, right before E3.
Yeah, what great timing. What a time to make more games than during E3, where we're already getting plenty of games.
Exactly.
But yeah, so this seems to be basically Nintendo's version of Dreams, which is to say, what is effectively an updated version of a game that's already come out, being being the garage mode of Labo VR, where you can make and create your own games. The key thing was, you couldn't share them in that game, but now they're fixing that because you can in Game Builder Garage. In addition, it seems they're fixing another issue with the original game, which was that the original was pretty complicated. There wasn't a whole lot in the way of tutorials or really even any way of getting you used to the tool set without you just playing around with it. Whereas here, there is going to be a tutorial mode that'll walk you through how to build these games. And then once you download other people's games, thanks to the game sharing feature, you can then actually take their game into the editor and check out how it actually works. So, let's just start off with our gut reactions to this. Tom, you actually are an indie game creator. You've been working on your own game for a few years now. What do you think of seeing this? Like, are you frustrated now, thinking, man, I could have spent all the time making my game in Game Builder Garage?
No, not at all. I'm just excited for something that it's going to be like WarioWare DIY, but I think even easier than that, and just to quickly put game creations together and maybe test out concepts quickly, like mini game jam versions of games.
Good point. How about you, Joey? You're a big game player. What do you think of this?
I am a big game player. Yeah, not so much of a maker, but I might give this a shot because from what I saw from the trailer, like the interface is just incredibly user-friendly, and that's something that you're gonna need if you're getting into the business of making games. I did take a game design class, like in the 9th grade, and we used an engine called Kodu. It's a very simple beginner's learner engine, but this looks way simpler than Kodu, I'll say that, and it looks really smooth. And I was thinking, watching the trailer, like how broad in scope can you get? How creative can you get creating these games? Because they were showing fairly limited ones at first. Like, at first it was just 2D side-scrollers, maybe even a space shooter. But then when the montage came up, we're seeing all kinds of stuff. We're seeing fighting games with animals. We're seeing a giant, it looked like a giant Star Fox type game with that giant avatar, like, just wailing his arms around. So yeah, I'm excited to see how creative the community gets with games like this. And I wonder how many Metroid fan games we'll see on this.
Well, Joey, you could be the premier Metroid game creator of Game Builder Garage if you want to be. You can make Metroid Prime 4 happen before Retro.
Yeah, and watch, it's going to be better than Prime. It's not, but
yeah, you actually touched on a few points there, Joey, that I think are good to go into more depth with, because I think people are going to be surprised by how powerful this creator can be. Obviously, it's going to be nowhere near what Dreams is on PS4, but I imagine this will probably be a little bit simpler take, given for one, it's Nintendo, but two, we've already seen, as I said earlier, the basic fundamentals of this in Labo VR, where this does seem to be just an updated version of that, which I think is a good thing. But it had a really strong base, just kind of a confusing one, where some of the games people were making in that were nuts. One guy basically recreated Super Hot, albeit a super, simple version of it, but it was a playable version of Super Hot, completely with slow motion, like gun physics and all that, and that was really cool. We showcased other games as well, like including a version of Mario 64 in the Bomb Battlefield, where you actually went around collecting, I think, stars or red coins. Some guy created Donkey Kong in it, and that is what's so exciting about this, is Nintendo is really, as Tom kind of touched on, really more embracing the creative side of things over the years, starting with, to some extent, WarioWare DIY, then we got Mario Maker, and then we got a limited tool set in, a surprisingly deep tool set in Labo VR, but it was shackled by not being able to share those online, and now finally, we are getting the ability to share it, although I am a little bit concerned about that still, because Nintendo specifically says that you'd use game codes in order to share, which, if that's the only way, that's a bit of a bummer, because because I want to be able to just go online, go into a directory of games in the game, and just download other people's things. And that could still be the case, but it sounded like that may not be, which means it's going to be left up to third parties, third-party websites to get the word out about these games. So it's way better than what it was before. It may not be as good as it should be, but in any case, I am stoked for this. I don't know, I've been feeling more of an itch recently to try my hand at game design, but such a daunting thing to get to try and take on, as I'm sure Tom can attest to, even with how user-friendly tools have gotten over the years. But Nintendo, this is something Nintendo tends to excel at. Mario Maker might be one of the simplest level creators out there, and I had a blast with that game, and I am so excited to see what I can make in this game. By the way, real quick, one of the genres Nintendo calls out in the press release for games you could create beyond like shooters and platformers is kart racing, which means I'm gonna have to try and make Double Dash 2, baby. I gotta make a Double Dash game in this.
What about Stunt Race FX 2?
I actually tweeted about this already. I covered both.
I thought so. I was like, I had a feeling you'd mention Stunt Race first, but you got to make sure that the game has a tool where you can lower the frame rate to your desired.
That's a good point. Yeah,
rate.
can I make it run at 5 frames per second? If not, it's not authentic. So
Exactly.
So yeah, the key thing I think is really going to make this user accessible, because as you touched on, Joey, it looks like that is what they're doing, and that is a big step up from what Labo VR did. I tried hopping into Labo VR because I knew it was a powerful device to make games. But Nintendo included their own 64 games they made on top of the main games built into the game, in which they created exclusively in the creator, and they were all like very different, some of them were really fun. But I actually went into the creator to see how they worked, and I'm like, I don't get this. I have no idea. Like you're connecting all these nodes to like actions, and I don't know. It was very confusing, and it seems like they are really simplifying it here to the point where they've even made it more visually attractive, being a color, whereas before it was just a black and white, almost like a super retro computer display. So Tom, for you as like a game creator, what do you think of this interface so far that we've seen? Does it make sense to you? Like, does it seem like a logical way of going about it?
I think so. Like, it looks a lot more friendly than the Labo one, for instance, right off the bat. That's going to help. And one of my friends is showing me how Unreal works for the one where you basically do it without programming, and it's kind of a similar node structure. So I think it might be the way to go in the future, or the way that's going already to make things easier. And Nintendo's just kind of following suit in that regard. Right. I mean, in Game Maker itself, I do use, write the code myself, but having a structure like this is far easier and maybe even more intuitive than back in the day with WarioWare DIY.
Yeah, I remember in WarioWare DIY, you spent, oh my god, how long was it? It felt like months. It probably wasn't months, but you spent forever on making a simple 5-second macro game. Tom, do you remember like how long that took you to make this beer catching game? Which was amazing.
I would do it off and on, like at an airport or like traveling just late at night before going to bed. It took quite a while, and I didn't even spend that much time polishing the art. It was a lot of setting up little scripts to run individual parts in that game. I feel like in this, it's going to be a lot quicker. Maybe at some point before this game goes live, I'll do a quick feature on it. Because on the very last day WiiWare was available, I downloaded the one to preview WarioWare DIY games.
Joey, so as one who took a class in game design, is this making you, do you think you might actually dive in and try to create your own game, or do you think you might more enjoy what other people are creating?
I think I'll try it first, and then I'll give up after a few weeks.
Spoilers.
And just play other people's games, because that's the whole reason I wanted to buy Dreams in the first place, was I wanted to try other people's like 3D Sonic games or something. How many Sonic games are we going to see in Game Maker Garage? That's what I want to know.
And that is kind of the concern. I haven't followed the Dreams community too actively, so I'm sure there are people who are active in it that would know more than I do. But it does seem like Dreams has fallen a bit off the radar, where you don't hear much about it. I think part of that is because there is for as simple as it made game creation, it's still a complicated, involved process. And in order to make a good game, no less, in Dreams or anywhere, that takes a lot of effort. And I wonder if that's going to be a barrier Nintendo can overcome, or they're going to, fall victim to the same exact issues where, making a game isn't easy. Again, Tom can attest to this, both in WarioWare and with his own game being Carpoon that he's been working on for years now. So
Yeah. It's going to depend on how much friction they kind of remove to get things moving around, get them interacting with each other, having things controlled the way you want. Maybe they'll have templates where it's like a shooter game that shoots. They've got something set up for that. I'm on a screen here where it's like easy to drag controls to a person and choose like, left or right or an action. Already that looks super quick to get something moving, which is kind of the key to game development. Like, as long as you can get something moving around on the screen and interacting, you're well on your way, and then you can just polish for a million years after.
right.
Do they have turn-based RPGs as one of them? Because I would love to see that.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
You could,
Yeah.
if they have a timer, I'm sure they could make it happen.
Yeah, I'm sure it's possible based on
Yep.
the criteria I played with in the original game, where there were even, I think, random functions you could assign. So you might be able to assign some like rudimentary, like at least random AI to a character and have them maybe attack. Yeah, it's a surprisingly powerful engine based on Labo VR, not even accounting for what they've added to it. And I'm excited to see what all you can do with this. And I do hope, like Labo VR, and imagine it will, that it'll come with a selection of pre-built-in games. That might even be what we saw at the end of the trailer, where they zoom out, show all those games. Those might be the ones that come with it, and that could be a good starting point to start your own game. It's like, hey, yeah, let me take the soccer field and you turn it into, instead of like you're running around as a character, I want to make my own version of Rocket League, where you're driving a car instead.
I would love at launch if they had reached out to a bunch of game creators to make small games. Like, let's see what the Suda51 Game Garage Builder
Oh, that would be so
equivalent is
awesome.
and stuff like that. Like what they did with, I believe, WarioWare DIY.
Did they also do that for Mario Maker? I think they did that for Mario Maker also. I remember Michel Ancel, I think, did a level in Mario Maker.
Yeah, I don't know if that was official by Nintendo or if that was by another website, but I do remember that too. Yeah, that was a pretty cool thing. So that would be really smart. Get actual game creators to make some things that you can show off in this. That's really kind of one of the main things I want here. Is I want Nintendo to be able to spotlight like cool levels, whether it's in the game or through another website, through their Twitter. Who cares? Or I do care. I think in game would be best. But I hope there is some way in which to actually showcase these creations, because the kind of downside to this game, or the unfortunate thing, is this game shouldn't have to exist, because it was already basically in Labo VR. You just couldn't share them there, and I hope at the least maybe they could create some way to import levels people already made in Labo VR and share them, and finally be able to share them now, because that'd be amazing. If you could if that person who made Donkey Kong or Mario 64 could just immediately upload those stages from Labo into Game Builder Garage, that'd be a great way to get some early games out there pretty quick,
Oh yeah, I just want to see what Kojima would make. He'll figure out something to make it weird, I know it.
Yep. Or we could try making our own Kojima game in Labo VR.
Oh my gosh. Yep. Feature idea right there. Nobody steal it.
So do you guys have any games on the top of your head that you would want to create? Whether you'd want to emulate an existing game, or is there a game you have in mind that you'd want to try and make in Game Builder Garage?
I do, but I don't want to say it, so other people might make it, even though making it is 99% of the effort.
Exactly. Me, it would be, I'd rip off something, I know it. I'd be like, okay, let's see if I can make a little Metroid Prime game, or make a little Sonic 3D game. The first good Sonic 3D game in a long time. Let's try that.
Or ever, yeah.
Or ever. Ouch.
I know. Yeah, that's kind of what I started doing in Mario Maker, where I had more fun in general trying to offer a different take on an existing idea, like trying to recreate other game stages or even entire games in Mario Maker. Like I had versions of Donkey Kong or Space Invaders in there, or Frogger, and so I'll probably experiment with that for at least a little bit. But I would like to try and realize some of my own ideas too. But I think it might be fun just to see what you can. I think it will be a lot of fun potentially to see what you can make in this game, and see what ideas just come from the tool set that they have available, and maybe some of the other games you play as part of it.
I wonder what the limit on objects will be. In Super Mario Maker 2, it's pretty high, and so you get some wild ideas in there. Also, kind of going to how Mario 35, that kind of ended for Pac-Man 99. Do you think Mario Maker 2 kind of ended to make way for this? Nintendo's like, we can't support two making games at the same time, or we want people to focus on this one.
You might be onto something there, but I do feel like they would be kind of separate audiences, whereas Game Builder Garage would be more towards the people who are trying to make an active career out of game design, whereas Super Mario Maker crowd is filled with some people of that caliber, but it's also mostly, Mario fans who just want to make ridiculous stages and don't care how good they are as long as you can beat it.
Yeah, I'm just like getting excited to think about all the options here. I'm looking at some of the games Nintendo created, and there's like one that reminded me almost of like a Kid Icarus boss fight where you had the giant character coming out of the water, and as it looks like a tank is shooting them. And the one of my concerns, I suppose, is or hopes rather, to put a more positive spin on it, is I hope they offer more than just that one player character we've seen. That was there were a variety of objects in the original game, but your primary character that you used was the one that was animated, was like that one like basic block figure, and I hope they offer a few more things even on top of that. And kind of to your point, Tom, how many objects you might be able to run? I think it was Tom who raised that. Maybe it was Joey.
It was Tom.
Yeah, there was, at least I remember there was one game in particular where there was just like a whole bunch of objects in a room. I think every object they had available, which I think was like 30 plus, and it had like a whole physics model where you could like just mess with the gravity and send the objects flying everywhere, and it ran fine. So yeah, I don't know if objects will be like a major limitation in this game, and I hope that it isn't. I just hope that they're adding even more into it beyond the base game that we saw in Labo VR. Because we have already seen at the least a sprite creator, which wasn't in the original game, and that is going to add a fair amount of possibilities to this, where you can basically draw your own sprite work, and that's super cool, even if I suck at art.
In theory, you could tie the sprites to the character, maybe replace his arms with him, and have it animating that way. I could see that if they don't want to have a full-on 3D modeler in the game, which would add a lot of complexity to it.
Although on 64, Tom, on the 64 DD, Mario Paint did have a 3D modeler, so let's bring that back. Let's bring back the game that never came out in America, or most anywhere, being Mario Paint 64 DD. Well, any final thoughts, everyone, before we wrap it up? Any other hopes for this, or dreams of making your own game that isn't a game you made in dreams?
Yeah, dreams.
I was just reminded of the fact that someone made Mario Maker in Little Big Planet, which still blows my mind. So maybe someone will make Dreams in Game Builder Garage.
Don't worry, everyone. Mother 4 is coming. I'm making it.
That'd be incredible. Please do.
Yes.
Oh, I just hope it's accessible, easy to use, quick to prototype stuff, and then it's going to have like a great interface for actually sharing them.
Yeah, that's really it. I mean, at the least, I'm happy that there is at least some way to share them. I just hope there is a better way to share it in-game than just using basically the game version of friend codes. Because I just want to be able to like go into like an online mode, play random games that are ranked highly, and see how they work. I don't want to have to go like on Twitter and see what people are building by searching for, hashtags or whatever.
And another quick note, it says, learn to make games from the minds of Nintendo. Maybe in those tutorials in there, they're going to have new tips on insights on how Nintendo actually makes games, which we only see sometimes, like at GDC with Splatoon and the Tofu Cubes, or a little bit from the Iwata book recently, when they kind of mentioned some of their process there. It'd be neat to see what's happened since then.
I hope we get master classes from Miyamoto.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's something I wish Mario Maker had done even more of. I guess it did a little bit more in Mario Maker 2, and we did get some of that insight into how to build the good levels. But I think it would be even more interesting at a game level, as you were saying, Tom, where we're actually, what does make a good game, and it would be fun to get Nintendo's secrets, and maybe Nintendo's competitors will learn a thing or two from Game Builder Garage.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Any other final thoughts or concerns at all, or are we about done here?
I think we're about done here. Game Builder Garage, coming to your garage, June 11th.
My only concern is that it's kind of coming around E3 time, which sometimes is the time when games get buried and maybe released if they aren't the best, Duke Nukem Forever. But I think it's a window where Nintendo sometimes does release games, so it should be fine.
What if Nintendo offered versions of demos of their E3 games only accessible via recreations and Game Builder Garage?
That would be genius.
It would be.
Great marketing tie-in. My brain is kind of melting at the thought of that, though.
Yeah. There actually was, we actually did get a little taste of games Nintendo made themselves in a tool set like this in Labo VR, because you could download games off the Nintendo news channel, where Nintendo will update like a new game every couple of weeks, and you can play it in Labo VR. So I hope they do that here too, or they share their own creators' games. Like, let's see what Miyamoto can do in this tool set, right? Or Sakurai. Maybe we'll finally get a new Sakurai game that is a Smash Brothers.
What if?
The dream. All right, I think that's about it. I for one, I am super excited for this. I've been trying to get more creative recently, and I think this could be a great outlet for it. And I'm really excited to see how Nintendo's take on the game building concept works. So, with that, everyone, thank you for watching. Let us know what you think of this in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what kind of game you might be thinking of creating. And of course, make sure to click the subscribe button and ring that bell, and click the videos on the right for tons more from GameXplain, hopefully about this in the future and other things as well. We'll catch you later. Bye, everyone.